Hey there, welcome back to Beyond the Park. Today we are hitting the season finale of Season 1. We're on Season 1, Episode 6, Rock Choke. Like a good rock star, I have a great cough as well. Anyway, we are hitting today with a great cold open. Andy Dwyer is finally getting his casts off, and in the process he sees all these weird things inside of his legs that he had lost, including I believe an iPod in there, and he tries to stand up, immediately falls down, his legs are broken. Anyway, we move on with all that's going on in this moment, and the episode kicks off. You see, Andy is about to have a huge concert with his band, Mouse Rat. Now, this has been something they've been working towards for quite some time, and everybody is going to be coming to this concert and is super pumping people up for it, except for Leslie. See, Leslie has to go out to dinner with a local bigwig who might be able to help her with some of the rezoning laws in preparation for her pit to turn into a park one day. And Leslie's upset about it. In fact, she even goes to her mom, Marlene, who set this up for her to see if she could get out of it. Marlene says, absolutely not. The person has blocked out their schedule. She has to go. Well, Leslie's goal is eventually to get back to this concert. And in the meantime is going around to everybody, telling them all about the concert, putting out flyers, until she eventually talks to the doctor who helped Andy. Now, this is an awkward moment. See, she says to the doctor that, it was sad that Andy was having some problems walking. Well, the doctor says it was his fault because he had put off getting the cast off for 2 weeks. Anne is furious about this because although she loves Andy, she is not in love with taking care of him like he's a 5-year-old kid. She is fuming. Fast forward, we get to the concert that night, and here we get to meet Andy and his band. Now, one of the things we immediately learn is how many times they've changed their band name. Now, I could pretend to have this memorized, or I'm going to bring over my laptop because honestly, I need the help. Quoting Andy about the list of band names that he has, he says, the band has had a few different names over the years. When we started, we were Teddy Bear Suicide, but then we changed it to Mouse Rat. Then we were God Hates Figs, Department of Homeland Obscurity, Flames for Flames, Muscle Confusion, Nothing Rhymes with Orange, then Everything Rhymes with Orange, Punch Face Champions, Radwagon, Puppy Pendulum, Possum Pendulum, Penis Pendulum, Handrail Suicide, Angel Snack, Just the Tip, Three Skin, Jet Black Road. We went back to Mouse Rat, and now we are Scarecrow Boat. God, when I hear myself say Scarecrow Boat out loud, I kind of hate it. Now, I want to be fair, when I say Mouse Rat, that's what the band eventually will just become to be known as, but frankly, with the name changes, how could you keep track of this, even if you're a super fan? Now, back to Leslie on her date. She doesn't know it's a date yet, to be fair. She goes out and she is meeting with this 62-year-old man, and she has every reason to believe this is professional, until he mentions that he feels safe talking to her about anything, starts showing her pictures of his kids and grandkids, and then Leslie realizes she is on a date with a wiry 62-year-old, and she wants to escape like nobody's business in here. Back at the show, everybody starts arriving. Ron brings a date, his ex-wife's sister, kind of awkward. Then we get to even meet Tom's wife. Now, this is a weird moment because we just found out that he's married, and we notice something kind of weird. She is way above Tom level. Now, Tom is going to age well in these years, but he's kind of weird and a little creepy, to be honest, at the beginning of this. But his wife seems amazing comparatively. And then April even brings her kind of friend, boyfriend type of thing. This relationship is so confusing. A person named Derek, who she is kind of infatuated with, and Mark shows up alone. And this is depressing him. You see, Mark has already had a couple of brutal tries, and the only thing he's done for significance lately is lower his speed bump by 2 inches. Mark is not in a great place here. But in this, Mark and Anne actually have a special moment together. And he questions Anne, why are you with Andy? Anne looks at this and rejects him hard. Because even though she's furious with Andy, she is not ready for this creeper Mark in this moment to put the moves on her. Leslie soon arrives back with her date. Everybody starts making fun of him, unfortunately, even though he turns out to be a pretty great guy. The show wraps up, and Anne and Andy leave to have a big talk. In the meantime, Mark and Leslie go back and sit a little drunkenly outside of the pit, which will hopefully one day become a park. They share, they talk about a lot of things. They even have a kiss there. But Leslie says no to this. Leslie ends up rejecting Mark, who then falls down into the pit. This brings us back to Anne and Andy, and this is a complex episode. They are fighting about his legs. Anne briefly kicks Andy out. Andy tells Anne that Mark has fallen down and that she has to go help him, and then they kind of, by nature, reconcile a little bit. And that's where the end of season 1 leaves us. Talk about a complex episode. Now this brings us, though, of course, to the best line of the episode. And it's between two people, Andy and Dr. Harris. It's right at the beginning of the episode, and here's how it rolls. Andy says, "It's going to feel so good to walk again finally." He immediately there face plants. Dr. Harris says comparatively, they might be a little weak at first. He just lets Andy fall to the ground. No worries, no hesitations, ready to see this guy break his neck. But this brings us to some of the more observations of the show. Let's take a look at the quick observations. Now, one of the interesting parts about this is the list of band names was originally an improvisation by Chris Pratt when he auditioned for the role of Andy. These are all original, which is super fascinating. We also find out that Chris Pratt plays the guitar, sings his own music, and even wrote the song "And" for this, which is awesome. Now we also see the beginning, this is all about Chris Pratt apparently, these are my facts. But we see for the first time April kind of really digging Andy in this scenario, because when he describes his style of music, April immediately says, "I get it." It's very exciting. And last but not least, we also find out that Leslie's date was apparently the father of Lawrence, the person who Andy has gotten into repeated fights with next door. For whatever reason, all of these are Chris Pratt today. But that also brings us beyond the park. So what stood out to me in this episode? What kind of caught our attention? Well, for me, I think it's how everybody is looking for love in this episode. Unfortunately, they're looking for it in all the wrong places. See, Leslie here is on a date with a 62-year-old, which is completely wrong. Mark tries to get with Anne and both Leslie. Tom is out with a woman who is his wife, but kind of, but not really. Andy and Anne are together, and we both know that that's not a real thing in the long term. And then, of course, we even see Ron hanging out here with his ex-wife's sister. Everybody is out, everybody is looking for love, but everybody is placing their hopes and dreams in the wrong place. And what's crazy to me is how each person is kind of tricking themselves in all of this, and to the extent that they're actually going about this. See, April won't let Mark question her about these relationships. Mark, of course, just wants to get drunk and flirt and probably hook up with anybody that'll let him be there. Anne defends Andy even though Andy's being a terrible jerk. Ron is just blindly overlooking the fact that this is a terrible relationship. And at least here, though, Leslie gets it right. At least at first. She knows that this guy's not the right person. She doesn't even want to pretend it. But she still goes on the date. Everyone is looking for love, but in the wrong places. And that's beyond the park today. You see, every person wants to be loved. There's even the most cold-hearted person wants to know that somebody out there cares them, or at least somebody's affirming them, somebody's believing in them. And for so many of us, we spend our lives trying to find a person who will love us. Maybe we're looking at a family member who just hasn't loved us in the past, but we desperately want their approval, their affection. Maybe it's a friend group, maybe it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, maybe it's even the love of an animal, and I've been rejected by way too many animals to know that that's not a real thing. We want love. We want to know that we're cared for. We want to be impacted by this. But love can be a hard thing to get at times. It can be a hard thing to receive. It could be a hard thing to give. It's a hard thing to experience. And I think one of our greatest fears is that we will live our lives, that we will put ourselves out vulnerably, that we'll show everything to the world, and we'll miss out on actually getting love, that somebody won't share it back. Mark in the story gets hit by it twice, by both Anne and Leslie. It's real. But you know what we're built for? More than anything in the world is love. Love is in our very fabric of our being. It's part of who we are, and it's part of what we're longing for. And the cool part is that a guy in the Bible named John described God simply as this. See, God is love. If there's one defining characteristic of God, is love. It's the very center of God's being. It's how he guides all the things that he does, thinks, and says. That at the very core of what he does for us, through Jesus, through hope, through the Holy Spirit, through all of these good things, is love. This reckless, passionate, all-pursuing love. That when we're lost, when we're hurt, when we're sad, and when we're depressed, we know God reaches out to us because he loves us beyond anything and everything else. See, love is, in the words of How I Met Your Mother, probably the best thing that we do. And it's the best thing that God brings. Because that love can change us. Because when we encounter true love, when we encounter true hope, true passion, we can't be the same person. At the end of season 1, if there's nothing else that we've gotten from Parks and Rec and how we go beyond the park and see how this story interacts with God, we can see that God loves you and that he cares about you and that he pursues you and that you are worthy to be loved. God is love and he is always there waiting. And that takes us beyond the park. Thank you for joining us for all of season 1. It has been a blast. And let's keep looking forward to the rest of Beyond the Park. See ya.